Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I wanted to go over a topic that I feel a lot of people have some misconceptions about, and I make topics about this topic, pretty frequently, but I still get questions about it in the comments. And so I feel like it's important to continue to clarify topics I've touched on in the past for new viewers, for individuals who are facing different challenges and they need more examples, or me seeing more examples while I'm practicing because I'm a practicing therapist and I can let y'all know what I'm learning, what I'm observing, okay? And so today the topic is the truth of when avoidant is not serious about you, okay? And the reason why I bring this up is because avoidant individuals, they already, from a person who might not understand attachment theory, which why should you? It's not something you're studying, and you just bump into someone who's avoidant and you get confused what's going on. You might think they're not serious about you, and they are, or you might think they are serious about you and they're not. And so that confusion is a really uncomfortable situation to be in. And I wouldn't really wish that on anybody. It's not fair. And so why I'm making this video is so that I can add clarity to individuals' lives so they can move on if they feel like this relationship is not valuable. Because I don't want anybody to wait around and not get the love that they deserve and want, and could be emotionally scarred by a relationship that has no value or weight to them. And so that's why I'm making this video. I think it's really important, okay? Now, the very first one, which I think is the absolute most important one, but I think the reason why I think it's more important is because a lot of people get confused with this one. And sometimes it could also mean other things are going on, which is why I put it in the front. Grand gestures instead of consistency. The other thing that might be going on is a person might have a personality disorder. You can have an attachment issue, but that doesn't always mean you have a diagnostic impression like a personality disorder, right? But individuals who tend to lean into grand gestures, a lot of them do have a personality disorder, not all of them. And there's nothing wrong with having a personality disorder, by the way. I treat personality disorder, so I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm saying you might be dealing with a more complex case. And so let's talk about grand gestures instead of consistency. What's an example of that? If a person pops back into your life and now they're all romantic and emotional and they say they love you and they want to have children with you, and then a week they're very consistent. In that week they're very romantic, they're very attached to you, and then they just disappear. And then they come back, rinse and repeat. That is when they're probably not as serious as in comparison to another avoidant individual who probably has very few grand gestures, but they continuously stay in their life. They might text you like 1 or 2 words a day. They might only take you on a date once a week, if that. And most of the time it's like you guys just, maybe it's not even a date. Maybe sometimes it is, but sometimes it's you guys just hanging out, cuddling, watching TV, taking walks together, going to the grocery store. So very low maintenance type things, but they've been in your life for years. And it's always been like that. They're not going to leave. That consistency is actually more valuable than an avoidant individual who declares love and jumps, hot and cold type of behavior. And I will say fearful avoidants tend to do this a little bit more, the grand gestures thing. But regardless, if an individual is not consistent, no matter who they are, this means that they're probably not serious about you. Now, there are some avoidants, a little bit more common with dismissive avoidance, but also fearful avoidance, where they may be in and out of your life, but they're still consistent with that, and there is no grand gestures. And if you look throughout the time, they're actually getting closer to you as time goes on. That's still a pretty difficult situation, but they probably are serious about you if you're noticing progress and consistency instead of grand gestures to cover up what's absent in the relationship, right? I hope that makes sense. Speaking of that, the next one is a promise to change or a promise of connection, whatever it may be, or a indirect implication of progress, but you see no progress. So when you're seeing an individual, you're in a relationship with an individual, you're married to somebody, progress is not something that is obvious in a particular moment, right? And so speaking of grand gestures, if somebody's suddenly very, very romantic, that doesn't mean they're a romantic person. How you know something is progressing and consistent is if you look at the timeline for what it was, or compare the perspective to what things used to be. So let me give an example because it's just easier for me to give examples, and I think it helps you all as well. Let's say somebody, I had this case yesterday, so that's why I'm thinking about it, where a person said they don't give compliments, right? Avoidant individuals do that a lot. I don't give compliments. It's not my thing. I don't think it means anything. It shouldn't matter. You should know that I like you. You should know I find you attractive, right? So avoidants have that mindset. Is it healthy? No. And I've made a video about compliments if you guys want more details about that, right? So this person is clearly very stubborn. Many avoidants are. But as the years go on, maybe you said, no, I like compliments, and they're more trusting of you. They're more connected to you. So they start complimenting you more. They have let go of their previous perspective and identity just a little bit, not their whole identity, but have modified it for you and your relationship with them, which is normal, right? But if you looked at them for who they are right now, let's say they do compliment you, but it's still not a lot, people would say, oh, that guy or girl doesn't really compliment you, which true, fair, but let's say they still compliment you like once a week or once a month, whatever it is. That is progress compared to maybe 6 months ago when there was no compliments. So the progress needs to be compared to who they used to be. Now, what about when an avoidant is not serious about you, which is a topic of this video? Well, you look back and there's no progress at all. It's the same, or unfortunately, it's worse, right? And so an avoidant can still love you, but it just means that they're not serious about you and the change that it takes for the relationship to grow. Any relationship, even if it's like a personality disorder or history of X, Y, and Z, if the two people are not willing to make some adjustments, one person could carry more of the weight. That happens. It happens a lot, unfortunately. But if there's no will on one person's end, it's probably not going to happen. It can happen. There are some techniques where you can save a relationship, but I don't want anyone to feel like that's how it should be. The next one is there's no progress of commitment or connection after 1 year. Now, 1 year is not always the number, but the reason why I give that is because I would say 1 year of consistently being together is probably better, because if you guys are off and on, 1 year is not a good mark. But if you guys have been dating for 1 entire year and you guys have been pretty consistent, but there's no progress towards commitment or connection, this might mean that the avoidant individual is not very serious about you, or they're not very serious about healing as a partner to grow, to make this a very long-term and healthy relationship. It can still be long-term, but it might not be healthy. What do I mean by connection? Because I feel like commitment is a little bit more straightforward. Connection could even be hugging more, talking about feelings more, expressing things, hearing you out more, listening, being less impatient. So many avoidants are impatient, especially dismissive avoidants, right? So you're seeing a little bit of progress towards letting you in their inner world. That's great. You should see a little bit in the first year, even just a small amount. If there's absolutely no progress or it's getting worse, this is where they're either not serious about you or you need clarification of what's going on. You need to have a conversation because it's going to be very confusing for you otherwise, okay? That's my perspective. I could be wrong. The next one, and I feel like this one a lot of people tolerate, and it can sometimes be difficult to tolerate this because it does affect your self-esteem and mental health, and it's frequent ghosting for long periods of time and then returning again. So it's almost like a cycle. Some avoidants do this, but this just usually means they're not very serious about you, or they're not serious about connection in general. So why do I say that? Keeping someone in your life for only a certain amount of time and then disappearing for a couple months to years, how's it possible that anyone is serious, or that's not serious enough for most people? In order to build a healthy relationship, typically, and there's so much research on this. I mean, you guys don't need to know research about this. Most people know this. You have to work through the minor issues along with the major issues. If they are at such a point that they need to ghost, or they have so many other priorities in their life that they can't give you that attention, regardless of if they're avoidant or not, this relationship is crumbling. And until this behavior is modified, adjusted, or I guess expected, and there is neither individual's expecting this too serious or it's just very casual, it's not going to end up as something that will lead to marriage. It may, but it's probably going to take a lot longer than an individual who's already a little bit more willing to work on these issues, okay? The next one is that they have cheated on you and shows no remorse or effort to express what led them to cheat. Now, cheating is not an attachment issue, okay? It's a moral issue, it's an emotional regulation issue, and I made a video on cheating pretty recently. So if you guys are curious, you can look at that detail. But the main part of this is an effort to express what led them to cheat, okay? Most individuals who cheat, they didn't just do it one moment because they felt like it, okay? It was led up to something. When somebody wants to change and make the relationship better, they want to find the source of why they did what they did. And they show remorse. If your partner cheated on you and they're not showing effort or remorse, they might not be serious about the relationship, okay? The next one is they always blame you and they absolutely take no accountability. They never have. Avoidant individuals don't like to take accountability. I know that, right? They don't really like to apologize, but they do. So if you're with a partner that has never done it and y'all have been together for like 2 years, this is something to have a conversation about. And it makes me think that the avoidant individual has been skating by a lot. Maybe they're taking you for granted. And I made a video on enabling recently. Sorry, I mentioned like different videos in this, but like I don't want to explain like every subtopic if I already have it, because this video will then become too long and complicated, okay? But I made another video on enabling. And sometimes when an avoidant individual is not taking accountability, sometimes I look at the partner. I'm not saying it's your fault. Absolutely not. But are you letting yourself be taken advantage of, that you're being blamed and you're not standing up, or you're not telling them they should take accountability and so they're comfortable with this dynamic? So this one doesn't necessarily mean they're not serious about you, but they might not be serious about the relationship growth, to which this one can be adjusted. This one is probably the easiest one on this list to adjust, because it just usually takes a couple conversations, typically, not all the time. And then you might actually find out they are serious about you, but it doesn't bode well for the relationship, and it creates negativity on your side at least, right? You're going to feel resentment. So I hope this video was helpful to someone. Regardless, I will elaborate on a lot of these topics in separate videos, right? A lot of these topics I've already touched on, but I will always continue to make more, because I know these topics can be a lot for a lot of people, and it can be confusing if I'm just condensing it in like 12, 15, 20 minutes. And so don't worry. I understand that this might be a little bit challenging to swallow, but I will always touch on these topics in the future as well, okay? So please subscribe, like, and I'll see you in the next one.